everyone. Good morning. Thanks for attending. So we're going to discuss the next 45 minutes. They're all going to be about circular economy with a particular focus on the reuse element. So this is all from the Alliance for Sustainable Building Products, which is where I work, and I will tell you a little bit more about us. So that's me. I'm a technical director at ASBP, and we have a Reuse Now campaign running, which Debbie will talk about, as well as a project called Disrupt 2, which is all looking at steel reuse, particularly structural steel, so the reuse of beams and columns there, which Celia is going to talk about, so she's leading the activities on that. And then we also have Howard, who's been working in demolition for 50 years. Sorry, a long old time. He's ex-CEO of the National Federation of Demolition Contractors. So a lot of what we are going to talk about today, Howard was doing years and years ago. So we need to really go back to some of our previous ways of working. But he's going to share some of the products that are really, really hard when it comes to end of life, both in terms of reuse and recycling. So trying to join up again with some of the sort of products that are being designed for the future. So we are all going to speak for about 10 minutes each, and then there'll be plenty of time, I hope, for a bit of Q&A. So think of some good questions. So who are we? The Alliance for Sustainable Building Products. We've been around for, I think, 13, 14 years now. Our stand is over there if you want to come and say hello to us after the event. We're not-for-profit, mission-led sustainability organisation, and we work around all these different areas. So today, very much, we're in the sort of the resource efficiency area, but that also touches upon lots of other areas as well. Reuse in terms of whole life carbon, ethics, transparency, making sure that we know what we're using is suitable. And we're very much about the products, and we're here to accelerate and really sort of, do more in terms of a healthy, low carbon built environment. This is us in numbers. There's loads of info on our website, so if you haven't ever been on our website, do go and have a look. Lots of that available for free. We have toolkits looking at steel reuse, looking at reducing plastic packaging on construction sites. We have work on mass timber insurance, which is looking more at insurance in related to fire and water damage of timber. So there's quite a breadth of what we do. We also have a lot of information on natural fibre insulation. All the manufacturers of that are members. Lots of webinars, and we had our Healthy Buildings event last week. This is our annual event, probably with about 170 people attending in the Builders Centre. And at that, we announced our awards. This is our 6th year of our awards. And behind me, if you want to have a look, you can see all the finalists and the award winners there. So we had categories for project, product, and initiative. So go and have a look. Some really great projects, initiatives there. We do run a lot of events on different topics. We're very much a knowledge-sharing organisation, so you can see some of the upcoming events there. If any of you happen to be near Wolverhampton or the West Midlands on the 13th of March, do come along, because we're having an in-person event, really picking up some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, really, looking at how we work with the demolition industry to get much more sort of levels of reuse for different materials. We have a memorial webinar from Neil May, who sadly passed away a few years ago. This issue is so important, mould, damp and health inequalities, so do come along for that. That's online if you can. And then we're looking at doing a few events related to biogenic carbon and circularity. It may need a snappier title than that, but that's how they're looked at in terms of whole sort of the life cycle assessment standards. And do come along, get involved with us. We're a friendly bunch. We're always doing lots of interesting things with lots of our members, of the about 150 members. Some of that's research, our specialist working groups in paints, plastics, insulation, lots of free stuff as well. So that's enough of me. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass over to Debbie now. So Debbie's been with us probably about 6 months now. She's a really great advocate for reuse, knows so much, so do question her afterwards. But she'll talk a bit more about what we're doing at ASBP in this area. Thank you.
Right, just a quick overview, as Catherine was saying, on reuse. A bit of scene setting, really. I'm sure all of you are probably aware of these statistics that the construction industry accounts for over a third of global carbon emissions and produces around 60 million tonnes of construction and demolition waste annually in the UK. Not only is that obviously a huge waste of resources, but also a waste of money. A lot of the waste is recovered and recycled. I'm sure, Howard would say that the demolition industry has been doing a lot on this for a very long time. Some of it's reused, but only a small percentage. Much of it is actually downcycled. So again, an area where there's a lot of opportunity there, with estimates suggesting that 22.3 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent could be saved over 9 years by increasing our reuse of construction products. And just one example of a case study there, you're perhaps already aware of the Resource Rose housing project in Copenhagen, where they innovatively didn't look at using bricks individually, but actually cut brick panels from the nearby Carlsberg Brewery building. So a bit more stats here from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation publication, looking at 3 main circular economy strategies that directly address emissions. Making better use of existing buildings, designing new buildings better, but particularly from today's agenda perspective, reusing and recycling building materials so that they don't end up in landfill or incineration. And again, a few more stats. These strategies could reduce global CO2 emissions by 2.1 billion tonnes by 2050, making circular strategies vital to reaching net zero. Good waste hierarchy, inverted pyramid there, again, something I'm sure you're probably all already aware of. Looking again at that middle piece there, building clever, reusing materials, designing for deconstruction and reuse. Overall, circular economy and reuse strategies, as we've mentioned, reduce carbon emissions, they maximise resources, addressing resource scarcity issues, which potentially are going to become more prevalent into the future. Limiting the impact of price volatility, not always, but quite often bringing cost savings, and increasing resilience by keeping those materials within the UK or within your local region. It's increasing resilience in the supply chain. Looking particularly at the Reuse Now campaign, which was relaunched in October last year with our Reuse Summit, which we'll look at doing again in October this year. We aim to encourage the greater reuse of building materials within the construction industry and accelerate the transition towards a more resource-efficient, low-carbon circular economy, as well as encouraging growth of low-zero carbon industries and supply chain models. A nice long mission statement there. But really, within what we're doing with the ASBP campaign is being as practical as possible. We're very keen on knowledge sharing throughout the industry, and not just avoiding reinventing the wheel, to look at what others are already doing. There's lots of already good work happening around circular economy and reuse, so gathering that information, signposting to it, and there's lots of information, as Catherine mentioned, on the website, lots of different links, but then also looking at what everybody else is doing and seeing what gaps there are that we as ASBP can work with both of our members and the wider construction industry to plug. So particular areas, in addition to events and what we've got on the website, looking at case studies, blogging on particular areas that we have knowledge of, or working with others to get their expertise across, doing some stakeholder mapping, but also doing some deep dives. We've done quite a bit of research around different product and sector areas that the industry is interested in finding out more about. One of them we're starting to look at the moment is partitions within a building. Another one is the industrial sector, because a lot of the case studies that we're coming across around reclamation and reuse of products tends to be in the commercial sector. So looking at the industrial sector, particularly in driving forward any best practice that's happening there and supporting the industry to do more. And then also potentially, one of Catherine's favourites is doors. Not even particularly issues around fire doors, but just doors in general, and looking at what we can do to support the industry in reusing those. Just a couple of stats that came out of our Reuse Now campaign. We did a few Slido questions at the event, and kind of as you expect, we are preaching to the converted slightly with the people that attend our events, but a good 82% of the audience had reused materials and products, and we then asked them to list the different types of products that they had reused. As you'd expect, a lot of steel in there, some bricks, flooring, ceilings, paving, but also interestingly some MEP, which is another area that we're potentially going to look at moving forward. Going back to the website, again, lots of interesting information in there. We've got some listings of digital and physical reuse hubs. We've got our recordings from our Digital Hubs webinar and a really well-attended Materials Passport webinar that was on the 1st of February. I'd encourage you to have a look at those. And then, another plug for the event in the West Midlands in Wolverhampton next week. If you or any of your colleagues are able to attend that, please come and have a chat with us on the stand. And I'm just going to hand over to Celia, who's going to talk about the Disrupt campaign.
Hi everyone, my name is Celia. I'm a research associate at the Alliance for Sustainable Building Products. So I lead research across several projects, and I'm going to tell you more about the Disrupt 1 and Disrupt 2 projects on steel reuse. So a bit of context. Steel is the world's most widely used material, and since Industrial Revolution, our civilization is built on steel products. But steel production is a huge emitter of global carbon emissions. Around half of all steel products are used in the construction sector. And the construction sector is quite wasteful. So around 50,000 buildings get demolished each year in the UK. And lots of them are commercial buildings. And commercial buildings, they're designed to last 60, 75 years, but many of them, they get demolished after 30 or 40 years of use. So structural steel sections, so beams and columns, these are robust elements, and their properties don't deteriorate over time unless exposed to severe conditions like fire, earthquakes, or excessive dynamic loads. But generally, structural steel sections, they can be reused, they can be recovered from buildings and used within new buildings. Well, reuse is subsequent use of steel with some minor alterations. So reuse is different from recycling. Recycling is when steel is remelted, and remelting is high energy process, lots of carbon emissions, and reuse avoids that. So reuse provides up to 96% of embodied carbon savings. And that's why we see lots of interest from companies, some construction projects with reclaimed steel, with reused steel. And this is because of this huge carbon savings. Now, if well managed, steel reuse on projects can provide cost savings. I guess there are lots of nuances to this, because so recovered steel from buildings can be purchased at 20% lower price than the new steel. But there are some additional processes of certification, testing, maybe some additional time for design building, additional time to fabricating. So But we see lots of some of the construction projects are cost neutral, so there's no additional cost for reusing steel, and some of them even provided cost savings. And very importantly, reusing steel allows utilizing a local resource. So steel that is available from buildings here in the UK. 77% of scrap steel is exported from the UK, and it's recycled somewhere else overseas. So it's quite a long journey. Egypt, Turkey, Bangladesh, and some other countries. So it doesn't travel nearby. It's lots of carbon emissions. So there are socio-economic benefits of reusing steel. It's generating employment and using a local resource. So currently we see there are two major steel reuse models. So steel is purchased from steel stockholders who would previously purchased it from demolition companies, and then it's sold on the open market. And there's another model when developers, they recover steel from their own buildings and then they reuse it within their new developments. So this is a journey of steel products from the old building to the new building. So before the demolition takes place, usually a pre-demolition audit is conducted. And this is to assess the condition of steel, quantities, and the feasibility of reuse. Then during the demolition or deconstruction process, so steel is carefully removed from buildings, and it's then supplied for reuse. So you can see the images below. It's how the reclaimed steel might look like. So it can be slightly rusty, which is not a problem. It can have some holes from the existing life. It can have some attachments, and that's also fine. So the steel shouldn't be bent. You can see below the image. If it's bent during the demolition process, it means that the structural properties have been compromised. So that's not suitable for reuse. So after the steel sections are recovered from buildings, then the initial reconditioning takes place. So that involves removing all the paints and coatings, because these paints, they cannot be used in the new life. They need to go, because then the new coatings will be applied. And then it can also involve filling up holes, removing attachments, and processes like this. And then this steel is certified tested and certified via independent laboratories. So the properties are confirmed, the grade, the mechanical properties and condition. And from that point, it's sent for fabrication and assembly on site and treated almost like new steel. So this is the journey of steel from demolished building to new building. And the technical barriers have been overcame for steel reuse. So the introduction of this structural steel reuse protocol by CSI. So there's no technical reasons for steel sections not to be reused. So we had 1-year project called Disrupt, and then within this project we collated case studies with steel reuse. So here you can see on the screen the different types of buildings. Some of them are commercial buildings, some of them are warehouses, some smaller scale agricultural buildings. We even have a domestic building there. So, and industrial buildings as well. So we looked at the lessons learned, what went well, what didn't go well. We looked at the motivations for steel reuse. So the huge carbon benefits of reusing steel is a big driver for reusing. So please have a look. These case studies, they're all available on our website. Now bear in mind that project, Disrupt 1, was completed a year ago. So we have even more projects with steel reuse now in London. And these are some more findings from our project. So within this project, we conducted interviews with the entire supply chain stakeholders, demolition contractors, stockholders, designers, clients, and we identified main technical, supply chain, economic and other carbon considerations. So all of these findings are available on our website. There is a QR code, you can have a look. But there are lots of findings. We also map the supply chains, so the entire supply chain, who is responsible for what, and what are the linkages. We also developed estimated the amounts of steel that is currently reused and it can be reused in future. So there are lots of resources. Within this Disrupt One, the previous project that we had, the main barrier for reusing steel is there's lots of demand for recovered steel, which is great, but there's not enough supply. So basically, we need to recover more steel from buildings. And that's what we're doing now within this new project. It's called Disrupt 2. It's a deep dive with the demolition industry. So we're trying to encourage demolition contractors to send more steel for reuse rather than recycling. So we are funded by Innovate UK, so all the findings will be publicly available. We're co-partnering with the Institute of Demolition Engineers and Cleveland Steel and Tubes. Okay, so this project is a deep dive with the demolition industry. We conducted interviews with demolition contractors, and now we formed a working group. And within the working group, 10, 12 people, we are discussing in a very detail the technical considerations. So what are the deconstruction, demolition approaches, how to recover steel from buildings in a way that it's acceptable for reuse. And also supply chain, some logistical factors and economic considerations as well. As part of this project, we are also looking at contractual relationships. So demolition contractors have contracts with main contractors or clients, and how this could be changed to encourage more reuse. So far I have been talking about reuse of structural steel sections, but what about non-structural steel sections, non-structural steel products? So fire doors, staircases, gates, fencing, all sorts of steel products that become available from demolition projects. So within this project, we are looking at, is it feasible to reuse them? What are the barriers? And we'll see how to encourage more of that. And as a result of this project, we will be developing a guidance for recovering steel from buildings and how to encourage more. So that's all from me. You can see my contact details. Please get in touch. And let's welcome our next speaker, Howard Button, who has lots of experience in demolition industry, and he is our partner within this project from the IDE.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending. They keep saying I've been in this industry a long while. I actually have been in this industry an awful long while, but I don't like to be reminded of it too much. So if we could play that one down a little bit in future, ladies. I'm not going to give my age away, but my topic today is actually difficult demolition waste, but I thought I'd just flag up here. In the good old days, we recycled and reused. Probably 80% was reused of the material. And if you look really carefully at that picture, you'll see it was a family day out. There's mum there with the pram and everything, going to buy second-hand building materials at auction. My own company, we used to auction off materials quite regularly, but we used to take them to the West Country where the farmers would buy them. They'd buy steel, buy absolutely anything to re-erect in cattle sheds, etc. But we do have, and we still have, difficult demolition waste, which is the main issue of my topic. This is a little photo here of how some of the timber used to be reclaimed. When I first started in the industry, 8 or 9 years old, my grandfather used to take me down to the yard, and we had to de-nail all of this timber so it could be sawn up. And it wasn't just modern nails, it was nails, clout nails, where they used to use lathe partitioning. Hundreds and hundreds of nails. We even used to recycle the nails, much to the disgust of the scrap man, because it used to give them punches, but we used to put the nails into empty paint cans, seal them up, chuck them in the scrap. This is the timber, that, not some of mine, I must be honest with you. that's been denailed and then is sawn to section sizes, predominantly planks for reuse in heritage reconstruction, etc. So, our top 5 difficult demolition wastes. I've got asbestos waste, polystyrene and POPs, composite materials, hazardous wood waste, and then the last one is modern methods of construction. Asbestos, we've all known, has been a dangerous material. It was a brilliant material when it was first developed and imported into the country. Thousands and thousands of tons were brought into the UK because it was the best insulation material. Sadly, nobody thought to look at the side effects of asbestos. And asbestos is still one of the biggest killers in the construction industry. It was totally banned in 1999, and all asbestos waste now has to be landfilled. So this little picture here has put an end to the Christmas spirit that there used to be. They used to sprinkle asbestos powder about because it was nice and white, looked like snow. It was used for special effects. It was used quite predominantly, and I don't think many of the people that were involved with that are probably with us anymore. So, next one is polystyrene and POPs. Whilst polystyrene is not carcinogenic, it is a real problem to our industry. It's in an awful lot of construction projects now. Sadly, I've had a wander around this morning and I've seen quite a few stands that are showing polystyrene blocks. I don't want to slag them off too much, but they're not really the best thing for our industry. The pre-insulated blocks here and the quick floor construction may be all well and good, but this is what happens when we try and get it out from a demolition project. Can you imagine insulation in a cavity wall? The machine driver comes along with his machine, knocks it all down, and there's polystyrene everywhere. This particular project, they had to go around with landscaping garden vacs, vacuum all the polystyrene up, because what was too small to pick up, they picked the large pieces out by hand, but the smaller pieces they had to vacuum up. And that's quite common now. Even when it's vacuumed up and disposed of in the skip, there's nowhere that's recycling it in this state. Once it's in the rubble, it's contaminating the rubble. It can be taken out by flotation, but that is a little bit of a difficult process. So we have pre-insulated plasterboard blocks as well. Some of the plasterboard has got phenolic foam backing. That is quite an issue. Plasterboard itself is regarded as a special waste. It has to be segregated. It has to go in a single non-reactive cell because of the hydrogen sulfide. I think it gives off smelly rotten eggs gas. It gives off, which is quite unpleasant. The Americans were the first to ban it, but it's now banned from landfill in the UK unless it is in a single cell, properly managed. But we have been looking at this polystyrene for quite a while. Catherine suddenly had a little thing, one of these things pop up on Facebook every now and then. What's this, 11 years ago, wasn't it, Catherine, we first looked at this? The BRE. They actually had a building on the BRE campus that was constructed from polystyrene blocks with concrete poured in the middle. They had to scrape the polystyrene off by hand to get it away. And I'm not sure if there's still a stockpile there, but it's gone finally. So that became one that I don't think I've ever forgotten that one at all. Composite materials. We're growing, the use of composite materials is growing all of the time. Whilst we can manage those, and they are very good for what they're meant for, they give a beautiful finish to a product, but they are very difficult at the end of life. It's far simpler, say for a roof structure, rather than using a moulded panel. Some of these big sheds currently they use a composite panel which has got a lining of steel sheets, phenolic foam, and then the outer laying for the roof, all stuck together. The way they take those apart, they take the sheets off. They have to stand a machine on one end of it and peel the sheets apart to scrape off the polystyrene foam. There's nowhere other than fridge recycling waste that would take those sheets as a single product. They're not reusable. I've yet to find anybody that will take them as reuse. Even back in the good old days when I was taking stuff for auction, the farmers wouldn't buy them because they sweated in the cow sheds and they used to drip water onto the cattle. They much preferred, believe it or not, asbestos sheets. But that market disappeared, unfortunately. Here's a little picture that I found rather alarming when I first saw this. This is our wind farm waste. I'm not sure if this... No, the pointer doesn't work, but that little yellow dot there is something like a D11D Caterpillar dozer. 80 or 90 ton machine spreading the soil over the wood farm blades, which are carbon fibre, which currently cannot be recycled. I'm sure that might be another little project for the Disrupt Group in the future to look at what we're going to do with carbon fibre, but that currently it's a problem. Hazardous wood waste. The Environment Agency changed the position statement in 2023, and wood waste is declared as hazardous unless tested to prove otherwise. This is due to the various chemicals that they've used in the wood treatment to prevent fungal issues, damp issues, and as a fire retardant. So the hazardous wood waste now has to be taken for testing. If your test proves that it is hazardous, it has to go to a higher temperature incineration process. There's nothing actually stopping it being reused as a length of wood. The chemical that's in the timber is not harmful to health. By touching it, it would be only really hazardous if you burnt it at the wrong temperatures. So it's a problem that the NFDC have been working on very hard. We took something, when I was Chief Executive there, we took something like 300 samples to submit to the Environment Agency as a case, but unfortunately it wasn't quite enough for them. The next one is a few examples of where we might see hazardous timber. It can be in the roof joists there, window frames and the barge boards, and tile battens. Tile battens actually have proven to be the most common area for the treatment, which is quite understandable. They're out in the elements and it would be the most likely place that they would be treated. This really puts an onus not just on the contractor but on the clients as well to ensure that the building is properly surveyed. And we would actively encourage pre-demolition audits to take full account of any materials that are in the building so that they can be properly and respectfully managed. Modern methods of construction, Robin Powell, dear friend of mine, the director of a large Midlands-based company, they took down a modern method of construction student accommodation block in preparation for the HS2 rail extension. I think you can see his comments there, and these are direct quotes from Robin. Virtually nothing was recycled. It was all composite materials. Their recycling rate was reduced by 30-odd%. So that's 30-odd% more to landfill. They also lost serious amounts of money because they hadn't banked or they hadn't accounted for the actual loss and the difficulty in getting rid of the waste. So they were not really very amused. It's something we've got to consider. I'm not trying to condemn modern methods of construction, but let's think about the end of life. I've been a great advocate all of my career for an end of life building directive. I think it's time that we, all of us, lobby government to make sure that the buildings that we do put up in the future have got a sound and sustainable life. So here's a couple of pictures of some modern methods of construction. The last one is the RAC beams, or RAAC, that we've seen on the news recently. I've just seen that one school has been agreed to be demolished and rebuilt. That's one of something like 160, 180 schools at a cost of £46 million for one school, simply because we didn't think to the future of what these materials really mean. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. We're doing an any...
Thank you, Howard.
That was enough.
So I think there's about 10 minutes worth of questions now. So who wants to start? Any questions? There's one over there. Thank you. Just the mic coming.
Hi, it's
Hello.
particularly about the MMCs. Obviously, there's a wide variety of different systems and different materials in use. What would you see as like, what would you need to do to try and kind of make sure that the systems that we put in, that we maybe might specify, are ones that have consideration for the end of life and taking apart?
Is mine on? Yeah?
Yeah.
I think it's the composites that really causes me, as a contractor, the biggest problem. When something is bonded together, you can't crack the bond very simply. But there's no real reason why things can't be put in layers. It's probably the simplest solution. If it's in a factory process, you could have the internal layer could be one process, the insulation layer, and the external cladding could be another layer. They're all going to have their relative fixings, but they would be demountable. When it's all bonded together with a modern, very good, very effective adhesive, it is an absolute pain in the proverbial, and we cannot process it, I'm afraid. So that's all I would recommend. I'm not trying to say stop using MMC, because it is part of the way to the future, but let's just look at what that future gives us and how we can think about taking it apart in the future. Thank you.
I think as well, because some of those products are so difficult to recycle at end of life, there probably needs to be a bit more focus on the reuse of them and keeping them as a panelised structure as well. And I'm not, there are examples of that more in the temporary building market. I know some of these projects haven't been around that long, but looking at those reuse options is equally, if not more important for these types of systems. Another question. Must have some more questions. One at the back there.
Hello. Hi all. Thanks for the talk. I've got two folds, which is one is around the pushback from the insurance companies, whether you've encountered anything. What happens to after certification? Does that mean it's just a brand new product, or what have you set any guidance for how you deal with the conversations with insurance? And the second one revolves around, let's say, quality assurance and warranties. So if you're reconditioning or you're installing as a contractor, where does the warranty lie, or what mechanisms can you put forward for reuse elements? Yeah.
Yeah, great. Debbie, do you want to have a go, and then I'll hand over to Asalia?
I'll let Asalia talk about steel specifically, but I think that's a big part of why we need to be working with the whole supply chain, because ultimately where we can get product back to manufacturers and involve manufacturers in that whole process, that's where you're going to get the best solution around remanufacturing, re-warrantying. Lighting is a really good example where organisations aren't just taking back their own lighting, they're taking back others' lighting, and a lot of materials can be saved by remanufacturing lighting systems. And the Philips Signify have got some really good case studies around that. And I think, it depends at what level you're reusing it as well. If you kind of look at the reuse hubs that are starting to come to the fore, you've got sort of community level reuse where it's sold as seen, it's, lower quantities. You haven't got the level, the expectation of warranty and that kind of quality pressure that you'd have at scale at a commercial level. But where you are looking at reusing materials at a commercial level, obviously that warranty and quality assurance piece, as well as the certainty of supply and demand, as well is another big key area around reuse.
Hello, can you hear me? So for steel products, I would say insurance is not an issue. The issue is behavioral change, is the awareness. So how it works, products, reclaimed steel section, they're certified and then they're supplied for fabrication. So steel fabricators, they are the ones who usually provide manufacturing warranty. So they provide it for new steel, and they also do the same process. They provide manufacturing warranty for reclaimed steel. Now, some steel contractors or fabricators will be resistant to fabricate reclaimed products. Why? Because some steel fabricators, they have automated, they have the machinery that is very automated. It's quite high tech, right? So when the recovered steel sections come, they might have a hole there, right? So if this production line touches that hole that is already existent, it can damage the equipment. And now steel contractors or fabricators, they all have different equipment, so it depends on their equipment. So I think that is the only reason why steel fabricators might be reluctant to do that. But there are big companies on the market who already have lots of experience with reusing steel, with fabricating, and they don't have any issues with providing insurance.
Thanks, Asalia. Howard, did you want to say anything quickly?
I just wanted to add, I think from my side, I think we actually need to get away from the word reuse. I think it's repurpose. And a lot of these materials will have been passed through some sort of a process before they're back into the construction sector. A good one that springs to mind is the reuse of computer floor tiling. There's a very, very active company now. They take them away, they sort them, grade them, and test them. They're going back as good as the original product, probably if not better because they've got a lower carbon threshold. But they have been tested, they've been repurposed, they're not directly reused. The slide I gave you originally of an auction, that was just straight off a demolition site, straight to auction. No warranty, buyer beware, etc. That's not the market we're in today. I think the material will have to have some sort of a governing warranty or whatever, as Asalia spoke about there. We, as a sector, are selling to merchants who are certifying that steel. So I'm pretty sure the construction sector will be reassured with the product that's eventually delivered.
And I just think this is where material passports come in, certainly for materials that we're now putting in, because a lot of it is just knowing the provenance of that material and how long it lasts and what warranties it's already got, etc., etc. Next question. Okay, I've been told we've got 2 minutes, so we're going to have a snappy response to this question.
I'll make it quick. Thanks for the presentation. It's really helpful and insightful. I was wondering about, with the rise of structural timber now, with cross-laminated timber, glulam beams and things like that, coming up so much on construction projects, does that count as a hazardous wood waste? Will it do in time to come, or is that a safe timber to use?
It's all of this timber is perfectly safe to use. It's in the disposal, and it's going to depend on the temperature of the incineration process. So normal incineration is 900 degrees, which is not high enough. To remove the pollutants, it has to be incinerated at 1200 degrees. Unfortunately, in this country, we've only got about 4 or 5 incinerators that work at that temperature at the moment. So it's something that I know the demolition sector are working with the Environment Agency on that problem, but I don't think glulam is one of the listed products. Wood Recycling Association would be a good starting point there. Or come and see us around the corner in a minute.
I will quickly add here.
Sorry.
So I think for timber products, I just saw on news there's a company called Derricks. They manufacture timber products in Germany or Netherlands, but I think it's Germany. So they produce the first timber products with bio-based glue. So I think the future is there. Let's have a look. It's the first product with bio-based glue.
Yeah, I think I think with a lot of hazardous materials, when they were first put in these products, we didn't know they were hazardous at that point. So with glulam and CLT, at the moment, we're not using hazardous materials in them. I think hazardous waste wood is any treatments, I think, from 2005. But who knows? With some of the products that we're using now, we may think they are hazardous in the future. And there's a whole load of, especially at European level, a whole load of sort of chemicals of concern and that sort of thing. But without further ado, I think I need to wrap it up now. Yes, being told to do that. So thank you very much. Come and have a chat to anyone. But thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.